A very warm welcome to the audience. I would like to thank you all for logging in today. Again, I am here from ACE Personal Resource Development, ACE Training and Development, the organization that I uh, have created for achieving creative excellence. And that's where I train people in achieving creative excellence through their core resources to be able to touch people's lives. And it's this particular initiative that I bring these interviews to bring to you people who are ace, who are achieving creative excellence in their field, and they are touching lives, they are creating positive change. And that's why I bring to you today a personality that I really, when I read through her profile, I was really very much interested to know more about her, and that's why I have invited her to this interview. She is a mompreneur. She is she has a law degree, and there is so much. She's a motivational speaker. She is a crisis management consultant, and most of all, she is doing a lot of uh, initiatives for the society. I would not like to elaborate everything right now. I would like to give her the opportunity to introduce herself and talk more about how she has been achieving creative excellence in her field. She has been touching lives uh, in environment and in society. So I'd like to introduce to you Cassandra Nazareth, and it's a pleasure for me to be talking to her today. So welcome, Cassandra. Thank you very much for being here today and giving us the opportunity to talk to you. So I would like to pass it on to you. Please introduce yourself, and we would love to know more about you.
Okay. Thank you, Rizwan, for this opportunity. And I hope we have fun over the next 40 minutes or so when we're going to be chatting. I'm so looking forward to it because I really enjoy a good chat. I rarely talk about myself and the work I do because I've always been very reticent about blowing my own trumpet. But I have encountered so many people over the years who have told me, no, you must talk about what you do. Because how will people come to know about what you are doing, and how will people be motivated to do and follow the ideals that you are instilling in others or whatever? So I said, okay, come on, I'll talk about myself. Anyway, I've got 3 children. I'm close to 60 years, 59 literally. Happy to flaunt my age because to me, age is just a number. I did my law degree at the age of 53 or 54. And the reason I went and did law is because I wanted to get some training in the Indian law so that would help me with the social work that I'm doing. Um, I am a multifaceted person, as you rightly pointed out. I love learning, I love knowing how things tick, and I have this affinity towards anything which, any area which I don't know anything about. So I'll read up about it, or I'll chew somebody's brains and say, how does this work? You know, because I have this curiosity in me. Like I remember when I went into RA Forest to work with the women, I went into RA Forest to save the trees. We'll talk more about it probably later. But I encountered this Varli tribe, and I realized that they needed more saving than saving the trees. So it's been a very rewarding and enriching journey for me personally because I've learned so much from these Varli women who I supposedly set out to help. I think in the bargain, I have also learned, I have also been helped to grow. You know, so as I said, I do lots of things. On the personal front, I run a consultancy where I consult on law issues, I consult on troubleshooting, conflict resolution. I've got very strong admin skills, which is something that uh, stood me in good stead when I worked in the corporate field. I was working for the garment export industry, clothing, many years back. And then I took a back seat when my family started and everything. But I continued working from home. I've been working from home for close to 25 to 30 years almost. And I really enjoyed the journey working from home because it's helped me be with my family. It's helped me develop and grow in ways where I wouldn't have managed if I had continued holding down that corporate job. Yes, I may have made less money, you know, but you can't put a value to memories, to opportunities out of which you have created your creative excellence or whatever, and opportunities which have come your way where you can use the skills that you have. So I think it's been a tremendous journey for me.
25 years of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So you must be a master at guiding people how to
Yes.
be an entrepreneur, because being an entrepreneur, it sounds very glamorous. It's got a lot of glamour behind it, but the journey itself in entrepreneurship, I don't think it's as easy as people expect it to be. So can you shed some light on this 25 years of journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I remember when I was, I'm talking of almost 25 years back. Okay. I had decided that before I am 40, I want to start my own business. And my friends were very curious. Why do you, I think I was 36 or something at that time. Why do you say that before you're 40? I said, no, that's a goal I've set for myself. So I'm very good at doing creative things out of fabric. So I used to make gifts for children. And I said, okay, everyone's appreciating this. Why don't I start doing something like this? And I remember I wanted to find one embroidery fellow who was close to me at Borivali, because otherwise my embroidery guy used to come to me all the way from Dadar. So I said, no, no, I have to find an embroidery guy here next to Borivali. So I put on my sneakers. I took a rickshaw to Borivali East, got down there, and I started asking the shops. I said, is there an embroidery guy in your area? So they told me, okay, go to this sari shop, go to that matching shop. So I walked in and I said, I'm looking for an embroidery fellow. Whom would you recommend in this area? So they all kept on pointing me towards one particular fellow. And they told me he lives in that basti. So I went into the basti and I searched for him. Today, 27 years later, I'm still working with him. Okay. And we've become more family friends than sort of, like supplier and whatever and everything. So
So what is it
being an
that you do?
architect,
What is it that you do? When you say that you started 25 years ago, what is this core industry that you're catering to right now?
okay, I recycle a lot of fabric because I like working with fabric, being a garment background. And when you work with the export industry, you always have small pieces of fabric, either 12 by 12 inches or half meter or 1 meter,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
which is literally thrown away. Or you have
right.
leftover labels and things like that. So I started making bags. I started using those for patchwork and everything. And I have a website where I do gifts for children and for adults, but
Mhm.
essentially I use a lot of uh, sort of leftover fabrics. I rarely buy good, meaning full takas of
That's
fabric.
where you take it from the factories, you pick up the leftover from the factories, and
A
then you
lot of
basically.
people know that I have this passion for recycling, so they just dump a whole lot of me.
So you don't have to go
I
around
don't really
finding it.
have to go anywhere. It just sort of comes, lands in my lap. And the same thing happened because when I started working with the Warli women, I instinctively started teaching them the same path that I followed. Like I taught them how to be thrifty with the kind of fabric. I would take fabric to them and I would say, okay, you all don't have sewing machines, but I will get you all sewing machines.
Ah,
You know?
okay. So
So
you connected your industry with
yes,
the Warlis so that they were getting the opportunities at the same time you were getting skilled people who
yes.
could work with you. So it was a
Yeah.
mutually beneficial, uh, ecology basically where both were
Yes, but
benefiting.
the Warli people, the training and the sewing for the Warli people and all has just started maybe about 3 or 4 years ago.
Ah, okay, not
You know,
not
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 so
before
long.
that, not
Okay.
before that. My journey with the Warli people started about 5 years ago when I went into RA, as I said, in 2016 as part of the Save RA movement. You know.
So earlier you have your own people who were doing this
Yes,
work
who were
basically.
doing this, a small workshop. But yes, I remember the very first woman I sort of, there were two women who I remember now who I empowered. I remember one, there was a very mousy looking housewife who used to stay around the corner from me. And I'm part of a very large women's organization here in Borivali. And naturally, I started my thing. Okay, come on, I'll teach you how to stitch. You can stitch bags, you can stitch quilts out of these things. And there were some people who came forward. And I remember there was this girl called Saraswati. She could hardly talk, and she was like very, every time she spoke, she was like cringing like that and all that. So she used to stitch my quilts and my bags first. Then I was running a food shop at that time. So I remember we wanted to go on a holiday. So I told her, you have to look after my food shop. But how will I look after the food shop? I said, but you're doing things, you're running your house. Why can't you look after the food shop? So I literally thrust it upon her and I went. Okay, when I came back, there was such a change in her because she would open my house, she would make the sandwiches in my house, she would run the shop. That gave her so much confidence that after
Absolutely.
I closed my shop, she started working in a Monjanis.
Wow.
Can you imagine? She was working in a Monjanis down the road
So
from me.
Monjini actually recruited her
Yes,
because of her skills, basically.
because of
Yes.
her skills. And I'm telling you, she was so reticent to even get out of her house. She said, no, no,
Wow.
I'll do whatever stitching you give me in my house. I said, no, you have to get out. You have to come out. So she was in Monjanis. Then from Monjanis, she moved to running another cashew nut shop totally on her own, not even with any other counter sales
Wow.
person. Then she's working now for White Cream, I think, which is also a cake chain in Mumbai. So I'm very proud of
Great.
somebody, and these are
Great.
just people you gave a little push to, you know. One of the other women who's still working with me and doing a lot of my sewing, I bumped into her when I went to buy sequins from a shop that she was selling sequins from. And I saw her sitting and stitching something by hand, and I found the work very neat. So it struck me. I walked away from her shop. And then after thinking, walking along the shop, road, I was thinking, I said, her work is very neat. Let me go and ask her if she'll do some of my stitching. So I walked back to her. She must have thought I'm this crazy woman who has come and asking questions, because I said, I noticed your work is very neat. Will you do some of my stitching? So she's saying, see, I don't know how to stitch. I know little bit. I said, you have to stitch straight lines, but that's it. So she said, if you give me, I will learn. So I said, fine. Today, that woman not only stitches clothes, she stitches everything. She stitches clothes, she stitches bags, she stitches quilts, she makes, these return gifts for weddings and everything, all on her own, only because she has learned how to do certain things when she was helping me do the
Great.
production for my
Great.
gift business. And her daughter just became a CA and got married. I met her when her kids were like
Fantastic.
2 years and 3 years. Single mother, she put her kids through college. I helped a bit along the way. But these are two success stories I'm very proud of.
So, Cassandra, would I say something like throughout this journey, you must have seen so many transformations, basically,
Yes,
right? People who were very, simple, very introvert, who really didn't believe in themselves, who didn't know their potential. That's what I talk about. I talk about achieving creative excellence, understanding your inner resources.
correct.
Basically, that's what is needed in our society for every individual to understand that he is in this world with an objective. He's here with a purpose, and he's got inner resources which are infinity that can be tapped. So, people like you, of course, are basically helping people to transform, to achieve their inner excellence, isn't it? So these experiences, what does it teach you? What's the message that you would like to give the audience? What is it that you find different when people move from A to Z, as we would say?
Okay, to answer your question, I'll just take a little circuitous route.
Mm.
When I went into RA, as I said, I met these Warli women for the first time. And I generally wear jeans and a t-shirt. And I have very short hair, much shorter than this. Okay, this is a little longer than I normally keep it. So when I first met these women, they were looking down and talking. Okay, and talking to me. I'm sitting across on the floor across them, and they're looking down and talking. So the first thing I told them, I said, please look at me and talk. So they said, no, but you're so much bigger than us. So I said, bigger than you in age or bigger than you in size, or what are you talking about big? So they said, no, no, you come from, you live in a flat and we live in a, like a little shanty. I said, but that doesn't mean we have all come from the same maker. So please look at me and talk. Okay, that was the first thing. All I did was give them confidence in the abilities that they have. Today, these are women, few of them can stand and talk to an audience. They can talk to people, foreign journalists who have gone taken to their village. They have the ability to talk, of course, in Marathi, but they hold their own. I don't have to be hovering around them to translate or anything. I said, talk, talk, say what you want. And I always tell the reporters, take them away from me, ask them whatever you want, because that's how it works. I have just given them the confidence and the ability to cook or to do this tribal tadka group of products that we do and I do with them. But I have learned so much from them. I have learned how to live a much more sustainable life, something which I didn't really know. And as I said, so I have, besides recycling a lot of kitchen waste and whatever, I have also taught them certain things about how to recycle and whatever. But I've also learned from them how to lead a more sustainable life. Like there are certain quirks that they use in their cooking. For instance, a small thing, like we were having a cookout once, and I said, your dal is so tasty. My dals at home never become like this. So one day I sat and I said, okay, show me how you all are making the thing. And I realized that they are putting 2 or 3 different types of pumpkin into that dal. Okay. And we never eat pumpkin at home. But after watching that, I started putting pumpkin or whatever into my chicken curry as well as my dal. And the flavors are so enhanced. So these are small things which I have learned along the way,
So
from them.
it's so humbling for you to say that you have learned something from them. But of course, that is always the fact.
Yeah,
As much as you might think that you know a lot of
exactly.
things, there are things you really don't know that you can learn from a small kid. You can learn from people who may not be very well developed or very well
Exactly.
read, but they know much more about the world and much more about culture, health, and so on, which
Yeah.
we basically take it for granted in some
And
ways.
resiliency. That is something that I've really learned from them. If you think that we have troubles, they have more, but they're happy and smiling. So I think I have learned how to sort of, get rid of some of that emotional intelligence that we have and tends to make us living in flats get depressed. Like when I'm facing a rough day or whatever, I just think of how happy these people are taking and lugging pots of water up a steep hill, you know
And they seem to be much more at peace, and
yes,
they look much healthier than
healthier.
we city folks.
Yeah,
We have everything to our comforts, but we are not as we don't look or we don't behave the same energy. You look at them; they walk kilometers without uh, going out of breath or anything at all.
Rizwan, one of the first things I did when I encountered these village people, I realized that the women have to walk for a minimum of 2 kilometers one way, just to
Minimum,
go
yeah,
minimum one way,
yeah.
okay, to go to the chakki, the flour mill, to grind their millets. So, one of the first things I did, because when I went into the villages, I had decided that I would ease the drudgery of the women, free their time, and utilize that time into productive entrepreneurial activities you know so one of the first things I did is I passed the word around in my circle saying, I want a flour mill. It costs only 15,000 bucks. Okay, I got flour mills. Today we have given 9 flour mills to different villages. Okay, one woman runs it as a business in her village. Yeah, she charges the same amount that is charged outside, but the village women are saved from the drudgery of walking 2 kilometers one way with a heavy 5 kilo load on your head, 5 or 10 kilo load on your head. So this is one positive change which I have brought into the villages, and I'm proud to say that chakkis that we've given 5 years ago are still being run today. you know so these are small changes.
So can you elaborate a few of the initiatives that you are actually implementing right now? Because I've read about this tribal lunch project, tribal tarka, and then the five-star master chef. It was so exciting for me to read about it that I was really waiting for the moment that I can talk to you to know more about it. It's so exciting to know. I can't go to MasterChef and even they can actually access MasterChef, which was
Yeah.
amazing, So
You know, I suppose this vivacity which God has given me, this gift which God has given me of being able to talk and talk forcefully, because it comes from an inner conviction that this is what I want to do and I know I can do it. Okay. So when I went into the villages, as I said, I went with the idea of saving the trees, and I discovered this Varli community, which according to me needed as much saving as the trees. So I was just trying to figure out how I could help them. So I asked these women, I said, what skills do you have? So I made them sit in
so
different
how do
groups.
they speak? They speak in Marathi and
Marathi, yes.
so you
And
need a
I'm an East
translator?
Indian. I'm an East
Oh yeah,
Indian.
you
No,
can
I'm
understand
an
Marathi.
East Indian. So we speak a
Okay.
dialect of
You
Marathi, which
speak
is
Konkani, yeah,
no,
basically.
I'm not a Goan, so I don't
Okay.
understand or speak Konkani.
Okay.
I'm an East Indian, so we're originally Mumbaikars.
Okay.
Okay, and we speak a dialect of Marathi, which is very similar to the Varli Marathi.
Okay.
So I could communicate with them. I was not very, very fluent, but over the 5 years now, I've become fairly fluent because I told them, I said, you have to correct me as I talk,
Fine,
because
you can learn your
communication,
language, yeah.
communication is about understanding.
Exactly. Yes.
So I said,
Yes.
if I'm fishing for a word, I would explain something and they would tell me the word. So I would remember next time. So anyway, so I started this project called the Tribal Lunch. Okay. Uh, I did two things. One is I wanted Mumbaikars to come into RA and see what a beautiful place RA was. Just as I discovered RA when I went in there, I wanted the rest of Mumbai also to understand. And I wanted Mumbaikars then to decide whether they would talk to their government and say, save RA or don't save RA. That was their prerogative. But I was not going to shove my narrative down anyone's throat. So I started this project called Tribal Tadka, the tribal lunch, basically, where these Varli women cooked and they would earn from that initiative. And Mumbaikars would come, benefit from that interaction, and also hopefully in the bargain, we would save RA. That was my goal, the
It's
two
a
goals.
social interaction
Yes,
initiative, basically,
yes,
for people to understand how the tribal culture is all about
yes.
and how they live. Yeah,
You
basically.
know, a lot of people in the beginning days, in the early days, told me, what rubbish. There are no Varli people living there.
Yeah, I myself
I
wasn't
said,
aware about this.
come for the village walks, which I conduct. Okay, it's not expensive, 150 bucks, 250 bucks. You get a Varli breakfast, you get a tour guide taking you around a
So
village.
it goes through the Sanjay Gandhi Park, is it?
No, Sanjay Gandhi has got 11 Vardi villages. That is different.
Okay,
That is different. I am working in Sanjay Gandhi as well.
right.
In RA, there are 27
So it's
Vardi
outside that
hamlets.
zone, basically, right?
Yes, RA is a different thing from Sanjay Gandhi, though they are connected
Yeah,
behind.
they're
They're
internally connected.
interconnected.
Yeah,
So you and me probably can't walk between Sanjay Gandhi and RA, but
yeah,
the
it's a
leopards
big,
do.
big zone,
But the
basically.
leopards come because
Yeah.
I'm working with Varli
I don't
villages.
want to be there.
No, they come mainly in the night, so you'll be safe during the day, but not really safe because one of my women was attacked at
Oh,
3:30 in the afternoon while she was scrubbing utensils. This
right.
was in 2013 or 14. So anyway, so these are villages where they do have leopards coming to their doorstep in the night. So, we have to talk about livestock. And then whenever I see a small little puppy in the village, I always ask the women, for how many days is he going to last before the leopard takes him away? you know, so we have that kind of a banter and whatever. So coming back to this tribal lunch thing. So a lot of people came into RA, the women earned, yeah, by that interaction. And I had Mumbaikars whose jaw dropped and they said, we never knew they existed. Otherwise, we used to drive 3,000 kilometers outside, not 3,000 kilometers, sorry. They would drive for about 3 hours outside Mumbai
Yeah.
to visit a Varli village, which was like a fabricated Varli village. I had people who used to call me up when they wanted to book tickets and they would say, are they fans? I said, you're going to a Varli village. There may not be electricity. So then they said, are there tables and chairs? I said, no, you'll have to sit on the ground. And if you get ants in your food, that's a bonus. So people thought I was really crazy. But I was not sanitizing any village or any
As
surrounding.
natural as it is,
Yeah.
basically.
You come, if there is dirt in the at the side of the thing, of the village, that is how they are living. Okay, I was not changing that initially. Slowly, the women took pride in their surroundings. So they
Okay.
started cleaning up on their own. So that is the
Okay.
social change which I brought about without me
Yeah.
telling them, clean up, somebody's coming. No,
So,
I
so
did not do
when
that.
the company, they were so conscious that people
Yes,
from the city are coming. So now
yes,
we need to make hygiene factors very important
correct.
within
Yeah.
the
So they
environment.
started cleaning up on their own. So I was happy. That was one change which happened. The second change was in the beginning, when the first couple of lunches, these women used to come with small babies on their hip. And I was so scared that the babies would fall in the fire because we're cooking on firewood. And after the second or third lunch, there were no small children. So I asked one of the women, where are all your smallies today? Nobody is here. So one of the women did this. So I said, I asked her what happened. She said, my husband is at home today. So he told me, you are earning, you go, I'll look after the children. So I was so happy because that was the second major sort of change within the community,
What?
which, yeah, you're breaking gender stereotypes there, for a very male
And you didn't have to
chauvinistic.
tell them anything,
I didn't have
basically.
to tell them anything. This happened naturally on its own because they could see that these were women who were earning and earning regularly. Then, after the second or the third lunch, I figured out that if we've got 100 or 150 Mumbaikars coming into a Varali village, they are all looking for things to buy. So I remember from the first lunch itself, I told some of the women there, if you have any produce in your farms, bring it, bring it. So they quickly went and they bought big bundles of pala, methi,
Oh,
then
okay.
pala bhaji, whatever they had lal mat, radish and
All
everything.
their
Yeah,
produce, yeah.
whatever they had. And people just picked it up because it was so fresh.
Right.
So the women were very happy because they didn't have to trek, like say, to the Marol market or to the
Exactly.
Goregaon market with one big dagla of things on their head. They sold it right there. So they were very happy. It was a
So
win-win situation for
it's a
everybody.
double resource of income, basically.
Exactly. So that is when I said, I'm going to be starting a flea market at every lunch. Okay. So,
Very nice.
and what was the flea market? We would just put one chatai or even one chadar down. Okay. And whatever was available in the village, the little kids would take out little blueberries, they would sell it there,
Wow.
or anyone,
Entrepreneurship, yeah, in
whatever. I
practice.
told the kids, whatever you have, which you all eat, bring and put little vatas, and the kids sold. They sold
Wow.
aulas from the, because this is as natural as you get. We didn't
Yes.
have any
And
stalls,
it's
nothing.
authentic, fresh
Authentic.
produce,
Yeah.
basically. Right.
So the thing is then, uh, from sort of just 10 families being involved in the tribal lunch, it sort of snowballed. Okay, then
Okay.
I
So the
put it,
word of mouth spread, basically, right?
word of mouth
Like
spread.
fire,
Yeah.
wildfire.
So we had a lot of people, even today, because of COVID, I've not been having the tribal lunches, but so many people are approaching me and I'm saying, I'm sorry. I'm mindful of the fact that I don't want to take COVID into these secluded
Yeah.
villages,
Yes.
So far. But during the COVID season, that is a whole new project which I did with them. The Sanjay Gandhi tribals reached out to me and they said, ma'am, we do not have food. This was on the 20th of March, 20th or 22nd. I have the date in my diary. I got a call from one of them. She said, there are villages who are starving in Sanjay Gandhi. I said, okay, how much food do you want for how many families? So she said, right now, just give me for 15 families. Okay. And we are a very, very small NGO. Okay. It's just driven by me, and I have a few volunteers from around, maybe two or three volunteers who are two of who are housewives and one CA who helps out,
So
but
what's the name
completely
of your
volunteer.
NGO?
We've just registered a trust which was in 2019 January. It's called the Nazareth Foundation.
The Nazareth Foundation.
Foundation, yeah. So that only allows me to give structure to the work that I do, because previously I was doing all my voluntary work under somebody else's NGO. Then my son told me, he said, what is this nonsense? Why don't you just register a trust? You'll have more control. You'll be able to do much more rather than depending on somebody to say, okay, can I do this? Can I do that? I said, he told me, after all, you are the one who's driving all these initiatives. So come on. So he went and he chose the name, he registered the trust, he did everything, gave me a little push. So that's good because I didn't want to be bogged down with looking after accounts and everything. I would rather be just doing the work. So that's why for 3 years when I was doing my work in RA, I was very happy to be doing it under somebody else's trust.
Yeah, all the paperwork hassles are not under you, basically.
Paperwork is not
I
easy.
don't like that.
Yeah, but I'm very lucky to have a volunteer who's been with me, I think, for 4 years. Her name is Blazia. She's a retired lady. She keeps me grounded. She handles all my accounts, she does all the paperwork, she makes all the vouchers for the women. So they also know her. So,
That's great.
it really is a helpful thing.
Congratulations on having your own NGO
It
foundation.
helped. It
Yes,
helped. And it
yes.
came
And
in
it gives
useful.
you the identity which
Yes,
you are so very important that
that's true.
people identify you with the NGO. And
Correct.
that makes all the difference, basically.
Yeah, I think that is important. But I'm glad that we registered the thing in 2019, I think February, and then we went into lockdown, you know. So it came in useful during the lockdown
Uh,
because I already had, like, say, the bank account, the registration certificate. It was fairly simple for us to raise funds, because when I put out the word on
yeah,
Twitter,
you
I
don't need to
said,
depend on anyone then. You are
yeah.
independently uh, serving the society
And
that you
I've had people who have donated 20 rupees. That 20 rupees was as um, precious to us as the 10,000 rupees somebody else gave me, because
absolutely.
it shows that there was somebody who had of very limited means, but yet they donated,
Absolutely.
you know. And we could talk about this COVID project on maybe another day, because that's a whole thing. I'm
Oh,
coming
it's
back.
quite interesting. Whatever you're saying, basically, that really the audience really understands more about how you as an NGO are supporting and contributing to the welfare of this particular
Yeah.
society, uh, and those initiatives really make a lot of difference.
Okay, so coming back to this tribal lunch and the flea market.
Yeah.
So then I asked people who had come for the tribal lunch. I said, I need a name for the products which we are going to do. So people sent me names on WhatsApp, and we zeroed in on tribal tadka, which was suggested by somebody who had come for the tribal lunch. So we zeroed in on this name, tribal tadka, and today we are selling masalas which these women make. Okay, they're called techas. That's a
Yeah,
typical Varvi kind of thing,
the crushed
crushed
masala.
thing. Yeah. Thecha means basically smashed.
Techa, yes.
So they do a lasun thecha, they do a mirchi thecha, and they do a bombil thecha. So three thechas is what we are selling.
But these are wet masalas,
No,
basically.
no, these are dry
Acha, dry
masalas.
masala, because there
Dry.
are wet masalas also.
Yes.
Very, yeah,
They do wet thechas as well, but those don't stay. So we
yeah,
do a
yeah.
wet thecha if you're having the tribal lunch. But
Right.
if you are selling, we sell the dry thecha because it's
Okay.
got a shelf life outside the fridge as well.
Yes.
And it's easier to transport. Logistics kills us, because to transport stuff from inside RA, I live at Borivali. It cost me 650 to 700 bucks round trip to go to RA and come back, because I have to keep my rickshaw waiting. There's no transport
Oh,
there.
okay.
There's no
So
transport
it's
there.
too deep in
It's
the.
very, very, yeah. From the main road, I told you, they walk 2 kilometers inside.
Okay.
So it's fairly, you don't see these villages from the main road when you're passing. I've been living in Mumbai all my life, and I never knew that these villages were there, even though I used to take that main RA road from Goregaon and get off at
Yeah,
Powai,
yeah, yeah.
because my husband had a factory at Ghatkupar. So we used to go there. And to me, RA was stopping at the Batata Vada place. I'm telling you, that's how this thing I was. Anyway, coming back to this tribal tadka thing. So the techas do quite well. And then we make laddus. We make methi laddus, nachni laddus, which is ragi. They do besan laddus and soft tea laddus. And all are made using jaggery. We don't use sugar.
Right.
So these sell very well. And we sell modaks, these ukadachi modaks, which are
Yes.
steamed modaks. And now during the lockdown, since we couldn't have our tribal lunches, I said, what do I do? So I started the sewing initiative. We crowdfunded sewing machines, gave it to them, and I started groups of them doing quilts, bags, and maybe gift bags and things like that. So that is something that we've done during the lockdown as well, because some way of putting earning, some money into their
Yes.
pockets.
And
So we do
you are
different things.
basically upskilling them
Yes.
to something which is really a demand in the market where.
Yes. See, the thing is, we are not the only people who buy the products. For instance, we have given students sewing machines to women in the villages.
Mm.
There are two women who do alterations in the village, and that's how they earn. Okay, so they, in their own way, they have figured out
Internal
how they
business,
can
yes,
use. Yes,
exactly.
they can run their own thing, because these are women who cannot really leave their villages and go out to work, because they are chained to the village water tap. You know, when water comes at 9:30,
Right.
they have to be there, whereas their family does without water. They do not have the luxury of turning a tap and getting water like how we do in
Okay.
high rises. They do not have the luxury of flushing like how we do. They go into the jungle to answer nature's call. One of the things, second things I did after the flour mills and the chakki, as I said, I went into this village which is at the top of a hill, and I found these women dragging water up the hill. It's such a steep hill that even if my rickshaw doesn't go up, I have to get off and walk alongside the rickshaw. Okay, so can you imagine dragging every drop of water you need? So I asked them, I said, come on, show me if do you have any bore wells here, because the government would not give me permission to dig a well. So I found out that there was one bore well which we could refurbish. And I got the funds through somebody who came for the tribal lunch program. Because people who came into RA for the tribal lunch would be so inspired when they went back. Because I would give a talk like that, and I would say, if you want to help what I'm doing, get in touch. This is my number. I think my number's all over the net, but I care a
Networking.
damn.
Networking, yeah.
Yeah. So there were people who reached out to me. So through this, I managed to refurbish that borewell. We put a submersible pump, we put a pipe going up the hill, and we put a holding water tank. And there too, I had to put two sides of pipes. Why? Because half this village didn't talk to the women on the other half. So I told them, I'm putting two lines of pipes. After this, y'all form a water committee and y'all are
That's
going to
your
be looking
problem.
after. Yeah. So I put two women from the two warring sides, and I put the headman's wife in the middle. I said, five of y'all are the water committee. Y'all
Sort it
collect,
out.
yeah, y'all sort it out. Y'all pay the electricity bill. Y'all will pay the maintenance. 4 years now, this has been going on nonstop, and the village
Yes,
is using the well.
really.
That is the second thing. Then we got, I had never heard of this thing called smokeless chullas, smokeless stoves. Okay. So somebody threw this idea at me and said, why don't you get them smokeless stoves? They're so much more sustainable. I'd never heard of smokeless stoves in my life.
What's
I
it all
did
about?
some reading. I did some reading, did some research.
Okay.
Today, we have given 2,500 families in RA smokeless stoves.
Is it the solar operated?
Not solar operated. I did my research. The solar operated ones are not really practical for these things,
Right.
because there are a lot of glass components.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. And I said, these are communities
yeah.
who've got young kids running around, and they've got livestock running around, they've got
So
people jumping.
what is this smokeless?
The smokeless stove is like a regular shigidi.
Okay.
Yeah. I can share a picture with you later. It uses 50% less firewood. Okay. So these women have to collect that much less firewood from the forest. Yeah. It burns without any smoke. It's a new technology which sort of recycles the smoke into the chulla itself. So it cooks much faster as well. So
Okay, so
health
it
wise, it's better.
uses that heat
Yes.
basically to
To
multiply the heat so
heat
that
and whatever.
less resource
Yes.
available.
So then we gave them, and as I said, now it's 5 years, and these women are still using it when I go
Fantastic.
around. We've given them small solar torches, which are very small. They're hardly about 5 inches in diameter, and so light, you can carry it in your handbag. You can throw it up, it falls down, it doesn't break. And it's got a hands-free thing which you can tuck into your sari waistband and use it when you're going out to the toilet. So these cost what, $350 each? So we've crowdfunded, I don't even remember how many of these, and we've given them to the women. And they keep asking because they say it's so useful. It lights up a whole room. These Warli women's houses are very dark even during the day, and they can't afford to keep a tube light burning the whole day. So these things were
So
ideal,
even
for them.
today they don't have electricity, right?
There is one village, in fact, there are two villages in RA. When I went into RA, I was not aware that they did not have electricity. In 2017, I happened to go to this other village in RA as I started expanding the work that I was doing. I wound up at this village in August 2017, which is opposite the Hub Mall on the Western
Oh,
Express Highway. So now I'm
what
giving
an
you,
irony,
yeah,
the
let's,
dichotomy between
yeah,
technology and
exactly. So you cross the Hub Mall, you enter this veterinary college, and less than a minute's walk from the veterinary college gate, which is touching the service road of the Western Express Highway, is a Warli village, was a Warli village, which did not have electricity. I stumbled upon this village in 2017 and I said, what crap is this? We're living in a bustling Mumbai, and here the Prime Minister is saying he's going to be lighting up so many villages, and here in Mumbai, we don't have electricity. So what rubbish is this? So I started a change.org campaign to light up this Warli village called Naushad Sapada. Okay. And I remember journalists reaching out to me and saying, what rubbish you're talking? How can there not be electricity? There's electricity on the highway. I said, you come and see. Come and see. There is a road built by the government which is running through the Warli village, mind you, through the Warli village, which has got streetlights on it. But the Warli village on either side, which is the Warli village people's land, which the government took in 1972 to set up the veterinary college. This village was denied electricity. So I got very irritated. I said, I've got to do something about it. And within less than a year of starting this change.org project, okay, it did two things. One is it galvanized the community into saying, if this woman from outside can fight for us, why can't we get together and fight for ourselves? So it galvanized the community into taking out a mocha for this village for electricity. And I think it rattled Mantralia to a certain extent, because the tribal ministry reached out to me and said, Madam, we'd like you to come for a meeting to Mantralia. I said, I'm sorry. If you have to discuss things which are affecting the village people, you will come to the village. I'm not bringing anybody and coming to Mantralia. So they came for a meeting in Naushad Sapada, and all 27 village representatives were there. So that is the power of change.
I think
and
what do you say? Your magnetism personified, basically.
So,
right?
but I would like to tell people who feel like, how can one person's signature or how can one person make a difference?
No.
I would like to tell people, you start doing, you never know who hears your voice. You never know who hears your voice, and you don't know who will benefit from what you are doing.
One thing, Nazareth. Cassandra, sorry.
A lot of people call me Cassie.
Okay, Cassie.
Yeah.
So one thing that I really, I agree with you on this point, that how can one person make a difference? You see, everyone wants to do it, but they want someone to look up to, right? When you actually go forward, there are people who want to associate with you. They don't want to do it on their own, but when they see that there is an initiative gathering, a particular positive energy coming, many people associate with that. And I think that is a fact. Once you start a positive initiative which is beneficial to a particular community, there are people who will go out of their way to contribute in any way possible, basically. But they don't want to be involved. Maybe they just want to be neutral in their contribution. There is something like that.
I would say that because, what surprised me when I was during the lockdown project, I just instinctively responded to a cry for help. From Sanjay Gandhi, they called me and they said, ma'am, we don't have food. So I said, okay, I called my local Kirana fellow and I told him, I said, make 15 kits of whatever. And this woman from Sanjay Gandhi came in a rickshaw, picked it up and took it away. Okay. And then I said, okay, how many more need? So then she said, give me 30 more kits. So 2 days later, 30 more kits, and I had no money. All my money was over. Okay. So I put out a thing on Twitter saying that, hey, I need food for the Warli people in Sanjay Gandhi National Park. Then I called up my women in RA. I said, how come y'all are not calling me for food? They are saying, ma'am, you help. They call me Kashibai. So
Kashibai, okay.
Yeah.
From Kashi, you become Kashibai.
Because they couldn't pronounce my name, this big long name that I have.
But it's cute.
The children couldn't pronounce it. Every time I reach there, they say Kashibai Ali. So I go running out. Anyway, so they told me, they said, see, right now we do have some funds. You please help Sanjay Gandhi because their situation is much worse than us, that way. Then later on, we had to help RA people as well. And I was surprised as to the kind of people who reached out to us. We are a relatively very, very small group of people. We are just maybe 4 or 5 of us. volunteers, all a very motley kind of thing, who have been doing this thing, but doing it with passion. We got a call one day from Dharma Bharati Mission. I had never heard of them, but they reached out. They gave me so much of stuff, because my thing is very clear. I don't want money. If you are comfortable giving funds, you give funds and we'll give you the bills. If you're not comfortable giving funds, you buy us XYZ, we will distribute, send you the pictures, you satisfy your sponsors. So we work that way. Whatever it is you want to give, we will make it happen. Okay. So Dharma Bharati Mission reached out. They sent so much of stuff. Okay. ATC Chandra. I had never heard of these names. I didn't even know who they were. There was no time, because we would be at our desk at different parts of the city working on, okay, so much of funds has come in yesterday. Blazia would tell me in the night, she said, okay, so much funds have come in. And then I would work with Mahesh, who's sitting somewhere at Dhaisar, and I would tell him, Mahesh, we have so much, we have 10,500. What can we buy with this? He would send someone, or he would call up the local Kirana fellow, the wholesale veggie fellow, and he would get the price list, and we would buy that much veggies or whatever, because we didn't have funds for grain. Grain was expensive. So I said, food is food, and from a women's perspective, if you send veggies, it elongates the life of the dal and the pulses, because you can put
Yeah, we can
potatoes
keep
into
and
the thing.
stock them.
Yes. So I used my brain and I told Mahesh, I said, we are going to send veggies. And that was welcome, because everyone was giving them grain, but nobody was giving them veggies, and they didn't have the money, or they couldn't even go out to buy veggies because nothing was there. So the stuff that we sent was really appreciated. Out of the blue, we got, I think, 25 lakhs worth of grain from Feeding India Zomato. I didn't even know who they were. I didn't even know who they were. It is only afterwards, when we had a little time, that I backtracked and I said, let me find out how these people came to me. Then I figured out that it was somebody on Twitter had tagged me on a post with Feeding India. And from all of
See
right around
how things
India,
really
exactly,
snowball into,
it snowballed.
something.
So we had so much of stuff that we could not only give it to the Adivasis around India, we sent it to Dharavi, we sent it to Cheetah Camp, we sent it to Govandi, we sent stuff to Palghar, so much.
Amazing, amazing.
So it
That's
comes from
that's
anywhere.
that's a real great initiative, Cassie. That I really, I'm moved by your inspiration. You're an inspiration, basically, the way you are actually
As I said, I just
contributing.
use this push that I have, and I'm
Something
lucky
I,
to have
I, I
people who
have read
gravitate
about
towards
you.
me.
Something I read about you, the change.org. What's this
Yes.
change.org about, basically?
Okay, this also happened to me completely by fluke. Okay, my sister-in-law, who reads up on what I do and everything, she told me, you have to apply for this fellowship. And I'm the last person to go for a seminar, because I'll say, oh God, where to go and sit and listen and listen and listen. So anyway, we applied basically for this fellowship or whatever, and I had no idea. I had never seen that spectrum of the world at all. And I get a call saying, from 2,500 women, you are one of the, how many people were there? Uh, 555. You are one of the 50 or 60 women that we have shortlisted from all India for this fellowship. So it was an online interview, and they said that you have to come to Bangalore, completely all expenses paid, for 5 days for a workshop. And I'm telling my family, I don't want to go. 5 days of my life will be going sitting there. My family said nothing doing. My kids especially, they said nothing doing. You will go. If nothing else, you will unwind for 5 days and come back. I am so glad, Rizwan, I went, because that has been a turning point in my life. It has given structure to the social work that I do. It has helped me find a tribe of like-minded women. Okay. Totally, I think over five.
So it's totally women oriented.
Yes, this is it's a program for women in India called
Okay.
She Creates Change.
Okay.
Okay. It's been supported by change.org.
Okay.
Yeah. And they've had 5 such workshops. At each workshop, 30 women are selected. So I was batch 3, and I was selected from some 2,000 plus women, all pan India, whatever, from among the 30, to be among the 30 for batch 3. I had never heard of them before. Anyway, it is here at this workshop that they literally take you inside out of yourself, and you're looking at what you are doing, your whole life, personality, your social work, you're looking at it from outside. So it helps you refine as to how you can be a better person to help somebody else. Plus, it gives you the tools of understanding how a change.org petition can be used as a very powerful tool for bringing about change. You know, so we get asked a lot of questions on Facebook, like, how will one signature make a difference? And we give them examples of how with 60,000 signatures, I got a village in Mumbai electricity. You know, another girl with 5,000 signatures got the government in Assam to build a bridge, a concrete bridge over a river. Otherwise, children were swimming that river by sitting in big dekshis, in big pots, in which we make biryani, the big pots, say 2 feet wide. They would carry that on their backs to school because they would sit in that and paddle across the river to
They
go
take
to
it
the
all
other.
the way to school and bring
Yeah,
it back.
yeah. So there are pictures online. So when I throw this at people, I said, this is what the power of one signature gets you. So this program has been a turning point because a lot of like-minded women from around the country became friends, you know, and it's my go-to community if I need to find anything or I need information on something. So it's been a source of strength for me. And I'm thankful to change.org for this opportunity.
Tell me more. I think I would like to know more. I'm sure
Okay.
there is more to
Okay.
it.
There is a chapter 6, which they've just put out the word for. I can share the link with you. So if there are any women and if there are any women in India who would like to enroll for the program, I can put them in touch with the people concerned. They basically have to send me a resume saying why they would like to change and whatever and everything. And I will check if
So
uh,
the women get trained in the whole process, is
yes,
it?
yes,
It's a
yes,
complete
yes.
training
They
process for them to.
complete training as to, like, as I said, I learned the power of how a petition works. They teach us how. So it came in useful for when I was part of the Save RA movement. It helped me refine. We had a change.org petition for Save RA. Okay. So you know what my friends and myself did? We translated it into 7 regional languages in India. That helped it go national, because otherwise the Sevare movement was only in English and it was only in Mumbai, and rest of India doesn't speak English. So if you have to resonate, with other people, you have to speak in the language that they speak in. So that is a powerful thing which I learned because I went for this workshop. And no, actually the training, I mean the conversion into the regional language came from my Warli people. When I started this petition for the electricity for the Warli village, I remember the community reached out to me and said, why is this only in English? Why can't we sign in Marathi? So I reached out to the change.org people and I said, hey, this has come from the community. What should I do? So they told me, okay, you translate it into Marathi. We'll figure out a way of what to do. So I think we pushed the barriers there because there was no change.org happening in regional languages in India. So I think probably this petition of mine was the first thing which was pushing change.org's boundaries as well, because now it's become the norm and it's very easy for them to link. So much so that there is a change.org Hindi uh, channel as well. You can write petitions in Hindi. And that was started after I pushed the thing and said, no, I have to connect Marathi and Hindi to my petitions.
Another thing I would like to ask you, Cassie, is can the people who would like to partner with you in the entrepreneurial venture that you are carrying forward, is there some way that people, if they are interested, they could also
Yeah,
initiate this particular
most
process,
welcome.
basically?
I am open to anybody sort of helping, reaching out, whatever. As I said, we have volunteers who help in different ways. We have an annual sari drive where we have women right around Mumbai collecting gently used pre-loved saris. They roll it in a particular way, the way they tell us, and they send it to us, either at an RA destination or to me at Borivali. Okay. And we send it to the villages, like we bifurcate so many to this village, so many to that village, whatever. And my women, Warli women volunteers distribute them. I have empowered the women. We don't need to go. Like they take ownership. My Varli women take ownership of the projects that we are doing. So I have created leaders in each village, women leaders who have come forward and have taken this project forward. During the COVID lockdown food project, as I said, COVID days, none of us stepped out of our houses. All we were doing was networking, making sure that the tempo was booked. Has the tempo reached? Has the tempo been unloaded? Has the thing been distributed? And my women would send me videos and um, pictures and everything. They took charge of the distribution. I didn't have to move out of my house at all. So anyone who's interested, you may be a housewife who's sitting at home. Fine, I'll give you work which you can do on the computer. I have stock list to maintain. How many laddus? Lot of work. How many laddus we have sold? Okay, make the account. Come on, so that I know that I have to pay this month. This thing. That is also work.
Right. Okay.
So this you want to help?
Anyway,
reach out. I will find something for you to do.
That's
Not
a
a
great
problem.
initiative. Yes. So I'm sure a lot of audience might be interested in, participating or being a part of your NGO in any way contributing towards.
I would rather be called a not-for-profit because this word NGO has got a very weird kind of connotation, and quite honestly, I don't really
It's
like
a
it.
zero profit venture, basically.
Yes, it's a zero profit venture. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a zero profit venture because whatever we earn goes back into the things that the projects that we do. We are always in negative because we're always running short of travel funds or whatever, that kind of thing. So we help the community with medical things, with putting kids through college. Then we have a protein project going on where we give them bananas or we give them boiled eggs. We've During the lockdown period, we've extended our work even to Madailan. There are Varli villages there as well. So slowly in fact, my Facebook page as well as the general page was called Tribal Tadka Women of RA. And then when we started during the lockdown, when we started working with communities other than RA in a big way, I had to change the name of the page because it was no longer only about RA. Because what I managed to do for the RA villages is put them on the map. When Mumbaikas did not know that they existed, the tribal lunch made sure that Mumbaikas knew that they are there. So much so that we have had people who have copied our tribal lunch project. Okay. So it's okay. It's okay because if it's genuinely helping the community, why should we say no? But as I said, it depends on whether it's helping one family or it's helping a full community. But as I said, so because I've managed to put the villagers of RA on the map, we've moved on to other areas where people hardly go. And these were communities that reached out to us through their relatives who live in RA, saying that we are also very remote. We are also very remote. Can you help us? And we sent food. So when the lockdown opened partially, I told Blase, I said, come on, let me go and visit the thing. So we booked our rickshawala and we went. And they are, again, 3 kilometers from the main Marve road inside. No electricity, dirt road, whatever. They have electricity in their villages. Okay. But they have to walk that distance again for whatever.
How,
so we're
how
given
do you handle both the things? Like you have your own production units, right? Where you are continuously producing these things. What do you call that?
The gifts that I make.
Gifts.
Yeah, I don't have a dedicated production unit. I use different vendors who do the thing.
Okay,
so I manage. As I said, I'm used to multitasking. I manage.
It's amazing how you manage it, basically.
There are days when I sit at my desk, I think sometimes till 10:30, 11:30, sometimes even 1:30 in the night if I have work. Or I can be at my desk at 6 o'clock in the morning also. I'm very lucky. I've been blessed. I have a large house. I've been blessed to have a very good maid who has been with me for 22 years. Okay, she's here from before my last daughter has been born.
They are your pillar of strength.
She is my pillar of strength because she runs my house.
Yes.
And I started a business for her 5 or 6 years ago. Okay. She's very good at cooking. I'm not good at cooking, and my mother is very good at cooking. So I think her name is Sumi. So I started a venture for her called Sumi's Kitchen. So she's learned like from me how to multitask and save time and things like that. But she is good in the kitchen, so she makes snacks and other condiments which she sells from my kitchen, and people place orders with her. And she helps me a lot with my work with the Varli women, because she'll pack my stuff, she'll unpack my stuff. All of them know her by name. She has come with me to the village as well, so we are really like a big family.
Correct. So, Cassie, it really was an enjoyable time I had talking to you, and it was so much of information and so much excitement that you generated with your stories, and so genuine cases that you talked about, the way you've transformed people's lives and how you have contributed towards this particular society. So I'm sure people who are watching it would be inspired, and if anyone would like to associate with you or get in touch with you, definitely we will put you on to them.
Okay.
And thank you very much for sharing these moments of your achieving creative excellence. And you are definitely an ace in whatever you're doing right now.
Thank you
You're
so much.
really contributing towards the society, and God bless you. Thank you very much for being such a support to the society. And I hope that you continue this initiative long in the future. And we keep looking at you, watching you in your strides and achievements that you take forward in future. So thank you very much, Cassie, for being here. And it was a real pleasure to talk to you today, and for giving me your valuable time.
Not at all, Rizwan. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
A
And
message you would like to give people here as we leave?
I think what each one should, I mean, the message I would like to tell people, especially women who feel that, okay, now my kids have grown up. What do I do? They go into a depression. Don't be depressed. Come out. There's more to life other than your family or your kids. You can build a life for yourself by helping people. You know, Anybody, whether it's a youngster or even a middle-aged person, male, female, anything. You know, Helping people doesn't need degrees. It just needs a bit of empathy. That's it.
And in any way that you can
In
contribute,
any way, in
you
any
don't
way.
need to do something very big. Basically,
Exactly.
it's just one step forward.
Yeah.
It can be magnified through so many people coming together. It exponentially grows that particular project,
Yeah. And reach out, because if you have limited time or you have limited resources, whatever it is, you can still help. You can still help. Time costs nothing, it's free. But how you use it, you can convert it into money for somebody else. You
Well,
know?
something which when you started this interview, you said age is not a factor,
Yes.
and you are a living example, and you are, of course, not to be, sweet talking, but you don't really look like you're bogged down by your age. Basically,
I'm not.
you're as lively and as energetic as a
Yeah.
35-year old. So I would like
And
to congratulate you and
thank you.
compliment you on that.
One last thing. When we were talking about the change.org program, I'd like to explain to viewers that I think is one of the very, very few, if not the only program, okay, that allows for women who are over 35 years old to apply. It has no age limit.
Okay.
Whereas all the other social entrepreneurship programs, they
So
have an
what are
age
the
limit.
criteria to be a part of it, basically? So
Anybody, you can be
anyone can apply.
any female can apply.
Okay.
We do trans, I mean, we have had transgenders who have also applied,
Okay.
and we have helped. Today they have their own blogs, they're putting themselves to college. The community has helped, you know so one last very funny thing. Somebody forced me to apply for this, um, 3M, that is a multinational company.
Yeah, yeah.
They have something called the Young India in Entrepreneurs Award or something. So somebody said, "No, you're doing so much work, you have to apply." So just to please her, I sent in the application and I got shortlisted.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, I got shortlisted for the semifinals. And I'm sitting, I said, okay, my children helped. They made a PPT for me because I don't have the skills to do that. I'm sitting there, and when the judges come in, it was an online thing because it happened, I think, few months ago. The host is telling me, we goofed. we did not realize that you are over the age limit. But your thing was so appealing. I think it just went through a selection process before somebody realized that you do not meet the age criteria. So I had a good laugh.
Okay.
And anyway, they shortlisted me. So I got their citation and everything,
Okay.
which
But then I think that was not fair. If it's, age should not be a criteria in any way.
yes, it shouldn't. But there are a lot of awards which they say it's only meant for, let's say, in the social sector, only up till 35, which is quite bad, because a lot of people are bogged down with family, career, whatever,
Exactly.
at that age.
And I think
So
many of the people who really bring out contributions to the society are those people who are left their jobs and now they are independently pursuing an objective and an initiative.
yes,
They are
yes,
more enthusiastic and more passionate towards that because they don't have anything bogging them down like a career or a
economics,
professional.
yes, economics.
Exactly,
Like, see,
exactly,
today I'm economically stable, you know
exactly.
that helps because it's only when you can stand on your own 2 feet that you can help others. Sorry, we'll keep on talking and talking.
No, that's why you're here because my actual talk says Riz talks. So I'm a talkative person and I love to talk to people who are the same. So that's why I wanted this to be something like an eat, have my cake and eat it too. So
Okay.
I want to bring people who can talk about themselves, inspire people, and bring out their energy to others
And
and
I must
share that.
thank Suhas because I've hardly interacted with him. I think we've just met online once
I
or
would also
twice.
like to thank Suhas here on the interview. Thank you, Suhas, for connecting with
Yeah.
Cassie, and thank you very much, Cassie. It's
Thank you so
really I
much.
really enjoyed every moment of it,
Yeah.
and I'm sure the audience will be inspired by your initiative.
Yeah.
And God bless you, and may you continue this initiative for
Thank
long,
you.
long term. Take
Yeah.
care. Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Yeah.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.